start the discussion? Yeah.
Yes,
my name is Iesl.
you showed a slide before 2015
It's a mismatch. Where you showed there is no phone in the CD generation, the generation plan was till 2035. Yeah, you are not showed anything after 2070s. But you know very well that the incident of failure, the whole power station is there from 2011. So why it's not there? He was like number 4 or 5. Scott Ford was mismatch.
This one, no.
No, much earlier than that. Yes, now see.
Yes.
So what I'm trying to say is how from where you got this? Because code is there in the CEP from 2011 and you don't have it.
No, this is the expansion.
Yes, expansion for the plan up to the 2034, but it has to be updated and rectified, corrected. So what I'm saying is now we are in 2016. The government got changed. Shahapalani came from 2015. You are talking about statistics of 2015 where there is no generation of coal. It's wrong.
This is only the expansion one, not the existing one.
Yes, but it has to be corrected. Then only you will have a correct projection 2024. Where is the correction that is made? I agree that in 2015 CBT didn't have a coal platform. But what I am saying is today you have coal. Where is the correction to this curve? My question to you is that these curves, how accurate they are? Are they
Accurate.
Pulse of the year?
Let me explain that. This is accurate. This is the incremental power plants coming up, the expansion, the new ones that is coming up based on their base case from 2015 to 2034. The existing one is not reflected in this graph.
So you will say this curve is hypothetical?
No, this is the outcome of the generation expansion planning study, the base case.
Yeah, but the base case has to be corrected to the current time frame. Otherwise it is outdated.
I didn't get your point.
This document came straight from the long-term generation plan put out by the CE.
It is corrected.
No, this is correct. This is their base case.
Yes. So what I mean, you are projecting a slide of somebody who is not doing the job correctly. What does it mean to us?
That's exactly the point I was raising. I was trying to answer the CEP's study outcomes.
Yes, now.
So the purpose is the same. Yeah. That's not dispute. I am not defending this.
Yes, but I say this curve for me is not may not be actual. And if we live on this, maybe we will end up with a different result. May not be accurate. That's my question to you. Now, the second question to you is that you mentioned about the CEP in your discussions many times. My concern is electricity is 100% state-owned monopoly. All that has happened because of electricity acts. It is not the engineers that found jobs and then they started selling electricity. It is the state, the Ceylon, the Sri Lanka had the electricity acts that caused the Ceylon exit. So what I am saying is it is of electricity is of the people. It has to be delivered by the CEP to the people. If not, CEP has to be there. And it's the, who shall change the CEP? It's the state, the politician, the political leader. And as per the Maitri manifesto, if they cannot achieve that, then I consider that citizen, we have to change the government, then change the city. I think it will happen. Thank you.
I am in full agreement with what you say, so there's no dispute.
Asoka, thank you for a very good presentation. I want to ask you on the demand side management. The daylight saving option has never been considered in the 80s, it was considered. clock by 2 hours?
Well, I have a mixed feeling about that because we tried that in the past as well. But I do not think that's the best way of doing that because the media, the TV and other stuff will push for us to be awake midnight irrespective of changing time. For short-term measures, I think that may have influence, but in the long run, the people will adapt to that and will
change their ways.
yeah, to utilize more energy.
I think other question you must remember is that this country is run by the astrologers. They are the people who take it back. So you might have an artificial to somebody else. Right. Anyway, next question.
Hello. Actually, we must thank him, for an excellent, presentation, which gave us the insight of the whole power sector, which is never heard in the media, nor even in the papers. I think probably because of the market. And the thing, one thing that you put here is mentioned here is, about port city. From port city is still not finalized. But you are talking about tapping the thermal energy in that system. So why cannot it be incorporated into it? No, you guys still trying. Why doesn't the government look into that possibility?
Yeah, I agree with that. That's why I presented the case because we are, I'm part of the government as well. But you are aware that currently it's a sort of a mixed group. So we are pushing for that actually. Green, if you are to go ahead with Port City, why we not we have green port city? Just rather going through the motions of what the previous government has done. So that actually we are trying our best to incorporate, but that depends on the political negotiations finally that's happening.
Okay, my question is, I had experience with few other countries in renewable energy, and I find that the regulator seems to be far more powerful than the transmission, the generator or the transmission licensing. In Sri Lanka, we were saying the plan which was done by CB was not with the government policy. Can't the regulator, the PCSL, get more involved in planning or maybe give the plan to CB and get them to implement? For example, we had experience few years back. The CB put a case against the regulator, against CB, against PCSL. So can't the PCSL or the regulator be more powerful so that we can have the government policies implemented?
Yeah, actually, I was discussing with the regulator and with the ministry as well whether we can do a planning exercise outside CEB with the involvement of the other professionals. It's not purely electrical engineers who can do this planning because there are lot of other elements involved, financial, environmental, economic, all the other factors are there. So we need to have a right blend while doing the planning exercise. So within CEB, they lack capacity to do a proper study. So I was requesting the government to consider whether the PUCSF can play a key role in that setup. However, I don't think enhancing the capacity of the regulator alone will resolve the issues because if we cannot inject professionalism into the sector, we cannot come up with a proper implementation because anyway, certain areas they are aware that it's a single biomodel with transmission one. So, if you are to discuss about having 6 companies and then they will say that we are going to privatize it, there will be other issues coming up. So the transparency should be there, that can be done. However, lack of professionalism is the key issue to best of my knowledge. If we cannot address that issue, having a more need for the regulator and getting more private sector participation alone will not that will not happen anyway, and that will not be able to resolve the issues as well. So right blend should be there. The government should take a proactive role to protect inject optimism to the CEB. That's very important. While doing that, we can open out, we can be more transparent. Then they have the confidence to be transparent and provide real information to the regulator to evaluate. Because we have realized that in the recent negotiations which had between the regulator and the CEB, the answers they are not is crazy. I cannot believe how professionals can answer like this. So that we need to address. We need to enhance the capacity of the CEB in the first place if we are open for private sector. So that's my understanding. Otherwise, nothing will going to happen.
Asoka, my name is Abeygunawardhane. I have a very basic layman's question. I was looking at all the charts. Maybe I can get it. Let's say we have all the professionals that we need. The government is 100% behind it. The country is behind it. Everybody's behind it. What I'm trying to understand is that if we go for 100% renewable energy by year 2030, everybody's behind it. The money, there should be some funds required. I didn't see a slide on your, not that I was expecting, but I have never seen anywhere, maybe I have seen and I didn't understand it. How that works out. We need money to do this conversion, right? If everything is fine except the money part, how are we going to do that?
Yeah, actually that's why I was trying to explain the approach of my approach towards cost. So levelized cost will indicate whether it's a burden to the consumers, low middle income country, whether we will be having more pressure on the consumer. It's not so. Policy is an advantage. However, we need to realize that upfront cost will be higher. So instead of having 3,000 megawatts of coal, we need to have 7,000 megawatts of wind. We need to go for 10,000 megawatts of solar. So upfront cost is high. That's why I was suggesting to go for a free tariff, which will address that. And finally, at the end of the after repayment, we will have a benefit for the consumers who are not having their own energy as well. So upfront, I was pushing for going something beyond net metering, mainly because then it will be up to the consumers or other private sector to raise their own funding for that. And government, on the other hand, I think worldwide, Anil is here, he will explain, worldwide there are a lot of opportunities for clean technologies. We have not tapped for last 15, let's say the example of now from 2007 onwards, we had Sustainable Energy Authority of Sri Lanka. They never tried to tap this. They should have done, because the opportunities are for the renewables, not for the fossil fuels worldwide. So funding is available. The only issue is whether we are going for investment, foreign investment, or go for lending. So my preference is to go for lending, because at the end of the day we will own that. Otherwise, there will be trade from country to the outside world. So if we are not concentrating on investment and if we are concentrating on lending, then the government should facilitate that process, so that the private companies and the consumers can tap that facility. So that sort of a move is essential. I have not discussed that, but that's very important. I agree with your point that I should have included a slide on that as well.
Yes, yes, sir. Actually, I agree with you. I doubt whether you can really take care of this peak demand without this non-renewable energy, despite this
Yeah, the peak is always made by hydro and by oil, not by coal anyway. So if we have excess renewables, then we can do that. Because for peaking purposes, we need to go for the spinning reserves and other available short, so LNG is preferred over coal mainly because of that reason, because coal cannot increase the so that's it. I agree with your point, but practically it's happening now, because if we have additional resources, renewable energy we have tapped, then we have access for meeting the peak as well.
likely to have LNG by our own by that time.
Well, I am not opposing LNG, but I am not promoting LNG as well. Well, that's the case. I really believe that we should not have that as well. Keep it underneath as long as possible. That's my my preference. But government moving away from coal towards LNG, I really support that, because going for coal is not the case, because we never have coal mine in Sri Lanka. There's a possibility of having gas field.
Many hands going up.
I'm Surya Ravi. Actually now, when we try to convert our energy production to renewable, but can't we go for this local value addition? That will give us a kind of a further policy benefit. And for example, now we are in a very advantageous situation. Now we are going to, even for now, the wind power plant at Mana, we are going to produce 100 megawatts. So with that, for that 100 megawatts, if we produce blades or something like that, that will give another industry. We will get an industry. So as Manaperi's question also, we will reduce cost, we will increase jobs, we will increase income. We may have another potential of exporting things like government give a very good support. It will be a huge policy benefit, and the entire country will be moving very positively for that if we add local value addition to renewables.
Yeah, I agree with that point. However, we are late, I believe. Now, India and China, they were expanding in the wind and solar sector. For wind, I think there is a possibility, but solar, I think a lot of things are happening in India. So now we are discussing about with cheap labor and all stuff. So anyway, irrespective of whether we are adding value and having a final product, still we can tap our own resources where certain areas like graphite for storage things. Adding value is very important. Whether we can go for the final product is an issue. I'm not sure, because we should have done that about 5-6 years back. Then we would have been in a better condition to start. Still, I believe we are not late. If you add that, then the cost will be further reduced. So I agree with that point.
Even for solar, now thin film is coming. So it's not very old technology, it's a new technology. I think if we can still try it there. Even India is not that far ahead there.
Well, even 2 days back I discussed that matter with a giant in China. The solar industry, because why we have the factory here. They said that we are late. They are really investing in India right now. So they have developed infrastructure. Why we should discuss about India, Sri Lanka, because anyway we are trying to cater to the Indian market.
Asoka, regarding the availability of green climate funds, at the moment there is a facility called the Green Climate Fund, which is operated out of Korea, and they have presently they have $10 billion committed to the fund, and it is meant for the kind of investments we are talking about: renewable energy, energy efficiency, including switching from coal to LNG. Right? In fact, because Japan has pressured, it includes switching from subcritical coal plant to supercritical coal plant. They will pay concessional financing even for that. But certainly for renewable energy, certainly for switching from coal to LNG resistance, that fund is available. There are $10 billion available right now, of which only $200 million has been committed to projects. By 2020, the intention is that facility is going to be $100 billion facility. So I think it is up to the government to go very proactively to this facility. If we are committed to clean energy growth path, we will seek funding from sources that there will be grants plus concessional financing on either terms. So this is something, to me it's a no-brainer. Why should we be raising money on commercial terms when some portion of it can be raised on concessional terms? That's point number one. The second point, I think we have to understand the important point that you made, that generation planning alone is not going to bring this 2030 vision that you have. You have to look at transmission as well as system control. One of the challenges you have now is that the existing system, which was designed for maybe in the last century, is designed for centralized power plants that can be dispatched when needed, etc., and not be able to handle distributed generation and variable generation. CB, I think, has probably the brightest engineers that our universities produce. So I would think they would be really inclined to want to push the boundaries, to look at new ways of doing things rather than doing the same thing that their grandfathers did in the old generation. I bet some of the engineers coming out would have been equivalent to my grandchildren. So, to me, there's huge opportunities out there for CEP to become a fantastic who can take advantage. And this old tradition of base load versus peak load. Southern Australia is now having wind and solar in their base load, and they are using variable things like gas, etc., to provide, and hydro to provide a peaking load. So there are different things that are happening. And the other point that you made, there is huge value added to the local community, to address the point of the gentleman before. In biomass alone, because of the ability to generate income among farmers and communities within the vicinity of a biomass plant, 4 megawatt biomass plant that I am involved in Virigama, we will be generating close to 400 to 500 million rupees income to 30,000 plus farmers in that area to supply fuel to us. So it's not insignificant. On an individual farm, it may not make a full living, but certainly 400 or 500 million rupees additional to the farmers is not a small amount of money. So those are some of the value additions I think we should consider. The final point is that there is really a near-term storage option we should look at seriously if you are looking, as you said, holistically, not looking at electricity for homes and businesses and transport something else. Look at electric cars. If you take a look at the Nissan Leaf, it has about it's about a 5 kilowatt charging capacity needed for. If you have 20,000 of them, and these are run at night time, we are talking about 100 megawatts of battery storage, which will run the electric vehicle it's not only cheaper, but it will displace much more expensive oil. So if you look at the country as a whole, there's tremendous value rather than rushing out and building a pump storage power plant, which is primarily designed to fill in the lack of demand during the night time. We could start right now and encourage electric vehicles to plug in after 11 o'clock at night and before 5:30 in the morning. Right? And they already have a tariff for electric vehicles, right? So the transition need not be huge, but the impact on the overall energy situation, like displacing oil in the transport sector, as well as urban environment potential, is huge, and it can be done at a lower cost than building pump storage, and a lower environmental cost, social cost than building pump storage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dipun. Thank you, Asoka, for conducting the lecture. So, in my point of view, sustainable energy is being the top of the decade. From the year 2000 onwards, being always like that. I honestly believe this kind of discussions has happened throughout that time. So, in my point of view, what I felt I was lacking was the lessons learned. It was always been the lessons learned that human race always been evolved. So, even during this discussion, I honestly felt I wanted to know something new from past experience. So, I feel that I didn't gain this today. Today I didn't gain it. We had a general discussion on sustainability, how we have to have it, and honestly, as an example, this graph. Like I don't think that it is the first time that there's an expansion plan put into place. Like previously, before 2016, there must have been around 20 odd expansion plans. So I feel that it needs to be there should be a comparison and lessons learned instead of I am honestly against the governmental procedures or politics in this matter, but I feel like these lessons to be learned by others, with facts, not with some predictions. I was this kind of prediction is an expansion plan. Next year, maybe 2017, they come with the next expansion plan, but they don't consider what has gone wrong. As an example, Norotchole power plant or something like that came as an expansion plan. There was a prediction that this plant needs to be put in place, and they have put it in place. We have to evaluate it, whether what has happened. But it is not being done. We will always criticize in the past. We are always predicting the future, and we are taking some action in the present. So I feel like as a responsible person, I felt that you need to address this stuff in a point of lessons learned other than predictions. In my point of view, as an example, this graph, if you could modify it to 1990 and what was the expansion plan, how it has gone up, we could see what has gone wrong. And as a professional, I am in solar sector, and if such graph was available, we could notice that whether we have bridged that gap. We are predicting that we are going to bridge that gap with sustainable energy, but we don't know whether what we stand in the past.
I agree with your point. Now, I have only one new slide in this presentation, but you need to understand the situation has changed. Well, we lost valuable 20 years or 25 years since 1990 after having the larger hydros. We should have done something else. Otherwise, there's no need for us to have this discussion again and again and again. However, in the last 5 years, I think in the wind and solar sector, they are the major breakthrough. So that will definitely, irrespective of whether we present this or not, things will anyway happen in the coming years. So one slide I presented new is, I think you should have noticed that we were mainly pushing for private sector to do it, and CED is opposed. We were discussing about restructuring CED and other stuff. I wish to highlight the new point I am trying to convey is that we should enhance the CED strength as well. Then only we can go for a better deal. The partnership building can happen only. I think that's the only new thing I suggested, because all the other things, Pala and the other, the earlier generation presented this case probably 25 years back. It's true. However, I think the Takobo can be ended if we can have the right blend of public and private and side part. So that's the only side I think I tried to present during this presentation.
My name is K.C. Somaran. Very simple point about what Dr. Abdal mentioned. He mentioned about the internet fund. I'm not boasting, but I believe I'm the first person who applied for a fund in 2011 January. And Preeti Bandari, the finance and technical coordinator, replied to me on the 3rd of February 2011 saying that the fund is not yet ready. But when the fund is made available, you can apply to the Ministry of Environment. But the things have changed since then. Now the fund is available. It will go up to $200 billion in 2020. Today, 10 billion is available. In fact, they came to Colombo, Sri Lanka to see what are the funds where we can mobilize that fund. And out of that 20 billion fund, we are sure that we can get some funding from that. The things have changed in the sense that we don't need to go to the Ministry of Environment today. The fund is with the UNFCCC. They are committed. It will be managed by the UNDP, and the UNDP has accredited certain banks to give out the funding. ADB and KFW are two such banks. So if there's a private sector entity who has a project, which is not a normal PV solar, not normal dendro, if there's something else which will promote the mitigation of climate change, you can always apply for that funding and get a reasonable portion. I'm sure you know it, Mr. Abeygunawardhane, so let's make use of it. That's my message. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Before somebody else raised that, I have a question. In a sense, judging from what happened, I can see sort of CEBs having a back to the wall double kind of thing. In the sense because you're on that side, you're on this side kind of thing. Now this happened mainly because of our national energy policy, which we are supposed to have NDP published or got approved in 2007 or 8 or something. That unfortunately was a very closed house effort, and our objection to that one was just brushed aside, saying that it will be revised in 3 years back. Now 2008, now 2016, nothing has happened. I would say nothing has happened. An attempt was made about 4 years ago, starting, but it fizzled. Question I have to ask Asoka is, now I hear there is another attempt to do this one, but I have a fear, but like we discussed it earlier, that it is also going to get close to this thing. Where, what I mentioned right in the beginning, we, the consumers, are kept out. Policies are going to be made by somebody and go and get approved by the parliament, and then we will be told that this is the policy. Now all what we discuss here today has to go into that. Now my question to you is, can we get the idea that we got in, perhaps idea that we have, to be included in that part? So definitely then we will be on the same side of the fence rather than CB on that side and we on this side and fight. And also when it comes to renewable energy, what happened was, these two targets, that 10% by 2015 and 20% by 2020, now they are hiding there. You see? And also that was specifically said that will be the private sector development and not the government sector. One thing is that 20% is no longer true, and there is absolutely no reason why it should be the private sector. If CEB, like when you say that CEB is a partner to this one, or a stakeholder in this one, it has to take. Because right now what's happening, CEB is trying to protect their empire, so to speak. Just open out that, let them be part of it. Is there any way we can influence this policy making?
Yeah, the document you referred is with me now. Well, this was sent dated 13th 5/2016. I received it on 23rd. They have mentioned that I have to, as the head of SEMA, send your comments on or before 23rd. So I informed that I have just received, I need 10 days and I will submit my duration. And I said that I am disappointed with this report because the things, the policies mentioned in the manifesto is not included in this document. This is just a justification of why they did this incorrect report. So it's not only CEP. It's not only CEP. The Ministry of Power and Renewable Energy, it's Renewable Energy Ministry. Still, the points I raised in my presentation is not included in this. Just the justification why we need to have some whole process. So definitely this is not going to be, I am sure, I have already informed that it is not going to be passed by the government. Definitely, it's up. Now I need to send my comments, so I can share that with anyone because this is an open process, this is not a hidden process. And I will be presenting a different draft for this because we cannot just change certain words of this because the context is totally different. Well, I was at the Ministry of Power and Energy since 2010 for 3 years. During that time, we were supposed to revisit the existing one and come up with new one. We drafted different things. Then we had just discussions. Nothing has happened because they want to defend what CET has done during the last 25 years. It's no more the future. So I agree with your point. This should go for public, and definitely this should go public even after compiling this, because at this stage, not only the CEP, even the Minister of Power and Energy appointed committee has not properly read what's in the manifesto and which was circulated to the all government agencies to adhere to the policies of this document. So it's not properly reflected. So this is an open game. We need to openly challenge this. I am not afraid, even though I am part of the government. We need to open this, discuss this. Otherwise, we are in nowhere.
Just my opinion, not a question, but what we see is there is a big fight between all these different parties. The mod call is maybe the right thing, they promote something else, maybe it's the right thing as well. But with all these, there is no confidence for the investors, which is the main thing which drives the country's production and all that other things. We can have a great solution finally in many years' time, but then the other things may have gone back. So we should come to consensus at some stage and give the confidence. That is how we can achieve, with power solution, the other things should also move ahead. That's my opinion.
Asoka, it's a presentation. I know you've been champion of this for a long time now. So what we are seeing very clearly is the whole fragmentation of the entire sector, and it's been fragmented for many years, and there's been vested interest, and there hasn't been, we haven't come together to look at our common interest. So it's a leadership issue, it's an issue of values and ethics, it's an issue of behavior. So we need to really put a mirror on ourselves in looking at this situation that Sri Lanka is facing right now in a way of a human issue that requires some crucial conversations. So I don't know who's going to lead that, and I don't know how that will be led, but I really see that's the way to move forward.
I just want to add to that point, four observations of my colleagues to the left. Asoka, who alluded to the paradigm of a cooperative 4P partnership that you're proposing. As you know, taking the lessons from the past, the CEP had a 100 megawatt wind power plant proposed with a subsidiary created in the CEP to get into the game of wind for CEP. Unfortunately, that was scuttled internally itself based on how the transmission lines were scheduled. Now, going forward also, transmission line construction and the projects will be running ahead of whatever plans that will come in, and then one would be beholden to the sites that those transmission lines are will be built, particularly Trinco transmission line. So, the point is there isn't that tie-up of what you talked about, transmission lines being distributed architecture was centralized architecture. Commitments for that with borrowings from banks, once those are made, will dictate what power choice or power location will be determined in the country. The third observation is with respect to the financing. Besides the UNFCCC fund in Korea, and quite correctly, the gentleman alluded to ADB and KFW, there is nothing preventing Sri Lanka to also position a bank, whether it's DFCC or NDB or any other bank, to actually become the disbursement point for those funds, and they are quite receptive to identifying a local bank to disburse funds for this region. So that opportunity should be taken advantage of. Then there is $22 trillion of private capital earmarked specifically for renewable and for green economy projects out of the 222 trillion world economy. So we need to, private sector clearly, as well as the government can tap that. So coming to the last point which FT just raised, which is an egotistical one, and how do you manage the egos in those who are taking decisions, and how do you become a peacemaker or a negotiator in negotiating a truce and a common shared agenda.
government is not that easy. I mean, it's not the politicians, it's the bureaucrats who determine the future of the country. So now we can influence and make aware the politicians, but it's very difficult for us to educate the bureaucrats.
There's one point that I would like to raise. Now, also you mentioned about this one problem would be that this type of ownership is EV also have the ownership. That is one barrier against going for this small scale plants is the money involved. For example, you go for a large power plant or an energy plant, there will be billions of dollars cost. And whoever the person who is involved in agent will get at least 20% commission. Now, what will happen to this commission? He is supposed to actually, service agent is supposed to provide maintenance and other problems with the plant. But in Sri Lanka, we must find out what will be the commission. So, the lack of commission is one of the key issues here. And when you go for this renewable projects, development plants and other plants, demands are small. So therefore, literally, the commissions are small. And this goes from top to bottom, to the very top to the people involved in the thing. Now, when we mentioned about that article that I wrote, now there, India and Pakistan negotiated with Qatar government to get LNG at very instant rates, and that is through negotiations between the ministers involved. Now, during that, if our ministers go for negotiations with those countries, that they will do in the best interest of the country or for themselves. Thank you.
Yeah, the point is now, if we are to shift from coal to renewables, if it's wind, it's double the capital. If it's solar, it's 4 times the capital. So money is there.
Scale of operations. Anybody else?
My name is Rajpal Chandra. This is my view. One gentleman was talking about lessons learned. I would like to bring your notice that we should learn from the telecom sector. I was in the telecom sector for a long time. If we did not restructure and privatize, it would have ended up worse than CB. So I think we could learn a lot from that. And because that way, when you publicize this, people will start thinking, the change in the telecom. So, as you said, you are the person who could promote this public-private partnership, get appoint a good regulator, and get this going.
I would have like to have the last question of the fact that nobody else has anything. Yes.
Actually, during the discussion, it was mentioned that CB has a monopoly. CB has a monopoly not only in generation but also in the distribution. Now, under public utilities, there should be more distribution companies or private entities lured into the sea. But unfortunately, there is only one private company which is involved in the distribution in Sri Lanka. Correctly speaking, there should have been more companies where we would be competing with each other so that the people can measure the performances of these companies. And also in Sri Lanka, the distribution system is so inefficient. I guess it's more than 15 to 80% loss in the transmission. So we are projecting the growth without really trying to increase the efficiency. If you are talking of a few percentages, it's a huge amount when we are calculating gigawatts. So I have a feeling like I think this is with the policy that you are talking, say CB can generate, but in the future, the distribution can be given to the private entities or competing entities, and also the solar power or the hydro power can be assigned to these entities without connecting into the main grid. Now we have Pradeshia Sabha and Parak Sabha, so each district or the Pradeshia sectors can manage their own distribution system rather than a centralized system. So then people can always compare and see, okay, look at this area, there is a better system, and the other area there is a system which is not efficient. So I think one gentleman was talking about this the old experiences, because it is difficult to get if it is from one source, because they can always pop up this information. But if you have, now the Pradeshia Sabha and the Parak system is already there, this distribution and probably part of the generation, especially the renewable energies, can be assigned to these areas. So what do you think of that solution?
Actually, I think you see the power sector is already privatized. Take the example of distribution. All new projects done by the private sector. Extensions done by the private sector. Bidding done by the private sector. Manpower companies were doing the office work and the other work. Everything is private. All new power plants, they never construct, they hire their other arms to do it. Now recently we have a new plant in Japan, they outsource it. We tried, asked them to do the feasibility study for Visa. We cannot do that. It's private part. Everything is privatized, but it's done by the management, not by the politicians. When politicians try to privatize, they object. So efficiency improvement, it's already happening, but I think the people who are working in the manpower organization, they are exploited by the CE. That's why the CEP employees are not working but getting salaries and pensions and all the others. The manpower companies, the workers, they were exploited. They don't have any security. They are indirectly privatizing it and exploiting them, but not for the benefit of the country, but for the benefit of the survival of the CE. I'm not sure if I'm too harsh on this.
No, but Asoka, I think what they say, the last is whatever the business of selling electricity, that is what remain, is to be like LEPO, for instance.
Yeah, that will not happen.
I didn't mention name, but it is LEPO, I think.
Yeah. If you discuss that, then nothing will happen. We need to protect the employees of the contractors to safeguard them. Because it's automatically it's privatized.
Yeah, anyway, I reserve the last question for me, unless there is anybody else want to. Asoka, when we are talking about how to get the CEP involved in this, and also this position for to change. I think in Sri Lanka we have one great opportunity that should be exploited by us consumers. That is how we will subscribe to my view. Rooftop solar. Rooftop solar, we have so much of it, and we should be working towards getting off the grid. That is possible. So you see, there are few things that should happen. The FIT grid is very important for that one. And also, there must be government policies to make sure there are no barriers to be for development of that sector. So that is duties and that sort of thing. Right now, again, only a few, I think there was an element from the solar sector here. Few companies are doing it, but I have a feeling they are not having a good enough vision for the future. So their prices are not very attractive still, although they have come down. But if that sector gets expanded, I think they have a good policy, good position for a lot of people to practically get off the grid. So then CEP will have to wait and come and this thing, and for that the trend, world trend is very attractive. prices of both solar and the battery storage is coming down. That is something that outside the CED we should be looking at. We should be looking at the potential for doing that and promoting that. For which, now this is an area where professionals and engineers will come in, try and evaluate that kind of technical issues that are involved, how to make it competitive. I was talking to one of the aluminium manufacturers. They are very ready to come into that kind of local value addition of that. They already are. They said they are very ready to work with it. So that is an area where we can really impose pressure because we have a tool in our hands. We as consumers we can exert the pressure. So then the CED will have to take this and get off this present unfortunate situation of trying to defend something. There's no reason to do that. They should be part of the game. Now, what is your opinion on this?
Yeah, it's already happening. The government has initiated a process to get rid of net metering and go for feed-in tariff. They are discussing about flat tariff. I suggested not to go ahead with flat tariff, but to go for a 3-tier tariff, which will benefit the sector. Otherwise, once you, down the line in the future, the solar prices will also further reduce. So the benefit should go to the sector. It's happening now. They are negotiating. That will work like the government just ignored the committed, so-called committed power plants. It's no more there. It's open now. Similarly, net metering soon we won't get. There's no need for us to discuss about that. Feed-in tariff. I am pushing for a 3-tier tariff. The issue is unless the CED is ready to absorb this, then there will be other issues. So, as soon as you open this, the private sector players will come and the consumers, either they can purchase equipment or they can rent the rooftop, all things or different things can happen. So, in that context, there may be a boom in this sector that happened because then there will be a net gain mainly for the low-end consumers. High-end, still the feed tariff will be lower than the consumer tariff. So, at the end of the day, still they get the addition. So, this will open up the low-end consumers to use their rooftop for getting an additional income. Either they can get a loan and get their rooftop, their own plant, or they can rent the rooftop, through which they will get an additional income. So, that will definitely happen with this initiative, but if the system is not ready, then there will be a lot of other issues involved. So, these issues will happen now. Like in the agriculture sector, the government banned glyphosate, then they opened the chemical fertilizer subsidy to a farmer subsidy. So, the mechanism is there, but the alternatives are not there. Similarly, in this sector, once you take the decision that will happen, this will open up, but the sector should react to that and improve their capacity to absorb these things.
I'm listening. I want to answer one question now. According to the lecture, your main thing is solar power. But if you fix the solar power things all over the country, it is not that economical, I think. Environmentally also, the urban scenery also wise, it won't be that much good look. It may be also, as well as now new energy from the material sources, that means changing mass into energy, also developing faster without radioactive isotope also. So if you go to solar, I think other alternative energy sources will come, this type of sources will come faster also, because solar and wind power may be a mixture, so it needs a lot of space also. If you do it in urban areas, all the roofs will be with the solar panels. So now the problem is mass turning into energy is because radioactive isotope is problem, but its main theory is even sun's energy is coming that way. Although the universe, it is the philosophy, mass turning to energy, basic one. So what is your idea? Because it will be a temporary measure, maybe I thought.
Yeah, I agree with your point. Now, ever increasing energy demand to be met by some other source will lead to some other issues, unknown issues right now. In the future, those issues will arise. And I am not advocating to go for single source. We need to have a diverse source. Definitely, variable renewable sources should have some other dispatchable resources as well. Right blend should be there, but the blend, the mix discussed right now includes coal, for which I am not in agreement. Mix of renewables can cater to this demand. Right blend is important. And ever increasing demand also, it's not possible to cater to ever increasing demand. Demand side management, like also two important aspects of it. So as a whole, I am not advocating for a single one, but what I am suggesting when I discuss about the potential, if necessary, that can be done. But I am not going to say that we should shift to one more another technology and come up with unknown issues in the future. I agree with your point.
Just the only point I want to make Asoka is with respect to making this distributed power generation work, transmission. When we discussed this as you know, World Bank maybe he was trying to unbundle the CEP at the time when they were considering privatization. But rather than privatization, still the unbundling of transmission, distribution, power generation as a concept is needed because the transmission layer is the one that is the bottleneck for now for all renewable energy providers to connect with the grid, because the transmission layer does not have an incentive built in for the transmission management. So carriage fees, transmission being unbundled within the CP as a profit center or as operating center separately will probably help achieve the goals that you want.
Yeah, I am not advocating to use the term used by the IMF and World Bank like unbundling, restructuring. Better to use some other term in a different way so that we can have a proper negotiation. Otherwise, they will be in their own silos and their business strategic business will be there. Definitely, they should be transparent. But using certain terms which was originally used will not favor for us to proceed further. So as Lalit mentioned, we need to think of new ways of having a constructive dialogue, genuine dialogue. Well, I have done certain negotiations in the other sectors, in the political sector and transport sector. The core issue is we need to first understand the solution. Then only we can gradually guide them to that point. If we don't have an idea about the ultimate solution, it's very difficult for us to negotiate. While understanding the solution, we need to understand the aspirations, their limitations. Within that, we need to identify. Actually, as an example, now I was instrumental in introducing this 20th Amendment for the election system. They are finally managed to get the blessings of all political parties, but for some other reason, we would go ahead with that. So we need to understand the aspirations and cater to as much as possible. Then only we can find a solution. As soon as we find a solution, definitely we can negotiate and push them. But my approach is actually not that proper, like loving to each. But it's not that friendly. But anyway, things will happen if we know the right answer.
I think we have to really also work with the center for tech. I think we have to really identify a set of values that we are looking at, and if we can, what I do is I want to appeal to everybody to put a mirror on ourselves as to why we are doing what we are doing. So whether it's from the CEB side or whether it's from the government side or the private sector side, and to recognize that whatever we do first will be done to look after my self-interest. So when my self-interest is acknowledged first, and when we test and see whether that self-interest is at loggerheads with the common interest, then I think we can come to through that crucial conversation, come to find that common ground.
to do that, you have to have a skillful way of creating that dialogue. And Asoka, I know, you stand your ground based on a set of values and ethics, but at the same time, you have to also honor each other in terms of everybody is coming with good intentions. And how do we value those good intentions? But we need to also see something in a different way. But Parakrama, I also acknowledge what you said. Now, countries like Canada, we are seeing an unbundling of the entire process. There is distribution power generation, the feeding tariff programs, for instance, in Ontario, has upset the whole system. So it's just like the Uber. Taxis are disrupting everything. The whole power sector we know is going to get disrupted. So whether, and at the end of the day, there's going to be people holding on to the old way. But there's going to be a natural process that will happen as the feeding tariff program starts. People will take the power into their own hands and we will decentralize and deregulate things. So I think that's a good way to go, good direction to go. So thank you.
One last question.
Yeah, question about this 5,000 small power plant that we're talking about, 500 kilowatt, which will generate this 500 megawatt. Is there a plan to build one of them and test how it is going to work and whether there are the risks for the environment and all that?
Actually, we were doing certain trials with a 20 kilowatt unit in one of the villages connected right now. And there are improved versions of that, and probably by next year we will be having worldwide the technically sound proven technologies will be available at the scale of 100 kilowatts. So definitely what we are pushing right now is to even during the environment week we will be launching a campaign to grow Glyceria. We are targeting about 100 million trees, targeting to get the leaves for fertilizer. So automatically feed will be available in the villages. So by next year we will be in a position to, initially we need to purchase those trees, but local value addition can be done. There are certain companies who are involved with that. So I was more keen to go for small scale units rather than 10 megawatt scale. So definitely that potential is there. I hope that the others will support we can get the blessings of all the other ministries except Ministry of Power and Renewable Energy. That's the problem we are having right now.
Yeah, I think we can. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Mr. for your presentation. We are very actively involved in the power sector, and we have been facing a great problem in the region 3 of the national grid, that's data grid. Then when we invest money in the renewable energy sector, at a later stage, when the CEB says that we don't have enough capacity in the national grid, or we don't have sufficient capacity in the existing transmission lines, then how can we achieve your targets in the future?
Yeah, it is the other way around now. There's difficulty in transmitting the central power plant, not the distributed one. That's the real challenge we currently see this way. It's the other way around. However, in the long run, we need to be very careful while providing this. And the cost will be very much lower when we are going for a distributed generation transmission planning. Then the cost will be very much lower. Right now, we have some transmission lines commissioned recently without, it's underutilized, it's not utilized. The Ambarambudu to Goal 1 and Anuradhapur Nivaranadapura. There's something wrong with that. That's why they will keep on saying that we need emergency power. So, transmission sector, the system control is in a mess. Actually, I'm saying that professionalism should be injected. Technically, we can be resolved. As I tried to point out, 6 ways of handling that. Practically, if the government is not attending to this, TV is not attending to that, in 3-4 years' time, definitely the consumers will have their own storage, independent of what CED is doing. They can manage on their own, still having the grid. So those things will happen in next 4-5 years' time. But if we can have a central system, that will be much more beneficial. So addressing that is the point. That's what I'm saying, that we can open up by introducing a feed-in tariff instead of the net metering, but the infrastructure should be ready for that. Otherwise, there will be another blame on renewable energy. You are sabotaging the system. So originally when CED came up with wind plant, they proved that it's not viable because they were operating at about 7% plant factor. It took number of years for private sector to rectify and show that it's happening at 30% plant. So the government proved that we cannot be absorbed. Similarly, the Valapane biomass, we took number of years to rectify the situation because it's a bad experience altogether. It was initiated by the government. And similarly, once you open this metering to feed tariff, I doubt if we cannot handle the other parts, then we will be in a mess again. So to avoid that, we need to work very closely with the CEP and the Minister of Power and Renewable Energy to make sure that the infrastructure, the facilities are there for us to absorb this.
So it's a paradigm shift anyway. So I think we should close up. I can be here for the rest of the night asking I'll ask it privately. Thank you very much for staying back. There are people who are really interested in this. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did. So we would like to make a small presentation to Mr. Asoka Abeygunawardhane before we conclude with our vote of thanks. Okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Asoka Abeygunawardhane, a member of the Mechanical Engineering Sectional Committee of the Iesl. First of all, on behalf of the Mechanical Engineering Sectional Committee, I would like to thank our invited presenter, Engineer Asoka Abeygunawardhane, by giving an excellent presentation on the electrical sector, a vision for the future. In this lecture, we could learn much about what measures about to taken to implement renewable energy technologies, and I understood that the many questions raised by the audience, and this lecture, how interesting these people. And I would like to thank our chairman, Mechanical Engineering Sectional Committee, Engineer Arjuna, for the tremendous support and the leadership. And as well as I would like to thank Engineer Parakku Jayasinghe to leading this energy sector. And our sincere thanks to Iesl staff, Mr. Ramani, Mr. Kalana, and Mr. Chamara from IT and Manage Operations, Mr. Tudor. Further, I would like to thank my MEC members, Engineer Damit and Mahesh. Last but not least, I would like to show my gratitude to you, the audience of this public lecture. Before concluding this event, there's a token of appreciation to be given to the presenter, Engineer Asoka Abeygunawardhane. So I cordially invite Engineer Parakku Jayasinghe to present the memento to Engineer Asoka Abeygunawardhane.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to remind you, our next lecture is on the 16th of June on energy efficiency and conservation. I think it would be interesting because we have looking at this that reduction. Was that by Mr. Ranjit Padmasri or Director General of the SC. It will be very welcome. Yes, I forgot. One more lecture by Mr. K.C. Sokaratna, very interesting thing. I will not even disclose the topic. You will find it very interesting. Please do come. As on 23rd of June.
Thank you everybody for gracing this occasion. Good night.